Hey folks, and welcome back to West Yorkshire Retro Gamer. It's match preview time, as Leeds have a rare midweek game. It's going to be up against Chelsea, so a similar level of opposition to what we've just faced against Man City, of which we lost narrowly 3-2 after levelling up in the second half to 2-2 and then conceding in the 90-something minute. Something we've done 3 times this season and have ultimately dropped 4 points because of it. Leeds realistically could have been 4 points better off this season and no one could have batted an eyelid on that. So, I have to apologise, I'm not fully fit yet, still can't get rid of this cough. So, what does this mean then? Well, the way that I've done the previews recently is that I've gone through possible lineups for both teams and all that kind of thing. But with this one, just purely because of what happened in the second half against Manchester City, I wanted to just focus on Leeds on this one. The only major news regarding Chelsea is that Caicedo could be unavailable due to picking up a red card in the last match, and apparently he's been one of their best players, so it's a good thing that he's missing. But again, like Man City, there's enough depth in that squad to kind of cover it. But hopefully he provides a major loss for them as far as their lineup's concerned. So I've just gone with the lineup that I would go with based on what happened in the last match. I would go with that 5-3-2 out of possession, 3-5-2 in possession. I'll go with Perry in goal. I'll go with our 3 primary centre backs. Bornau's injured anyway, as far as I'm aware, so that just leaves us with 3 senior centre backs. So that's Rodon, Biol, and Strauch. I have them all playing in a back 3. Jaden Bogle and Gabby Robinson would act as wing backs, so obviously going into full back position when having to defend in a 5-3-2, then pushing into being wing backs going into the 3-5-2 when we're in possession and attacking. So this then means I would stick with the midfield that played last time out with Ampadu and Gruev protecting the back line, with Outanaka having that little bit of licence to go forward and support the front 2, which would be Lucas Mecha and Dominic Calvert-Lewin. Simply put, this lineup looked good against Manchester City. They rattled them, they caused them problems. The front 2 got a goal each. Mecha currently is in really good form. You can't drop him. Calvert-Lewin made a massive difference when he came on. Was a major catalyst for what went on up front against Man City. So I think the 2 of them could work well as a front 2. I really do. It looked very effective. And the thing is that it's against a similar level of opposition, so I think we should go with this because we looked better in this kind of formation and lineup than what we did with the 4-3-3. The 4-3-3 has worked at certain times against certain teams, but it will not work against teams that have been massively spent on. Like your Man City, like your Chelsea, just to name a couple. So, simply put, this lineup has to start, and has to start in the 5-3-2/3-5-2 formation. It just has to. If Farke doesn't, then it makes you wonder what the hell's going through Daniel Farke's mind. At the end of the day, apparently Maresca, the Chelsea manager, has said that he's not actually sure as to how Leeds will turn up tomorrow night now because of what happened with the Man City game, which is great, isn't it? You know, it springs a possible surprise, but it also forces Maresca to prepare his team for two possible eventualities. One of them being that Leeds play in their 4-3-3, the other being that they play in the 5-3-2/3-5-2. So this is tactically very clever in a sense, or it's resulted in it being quite tactically clever, because ultimately it's doubled the workload for Chelsea. Because instead of them kind of predicting that Leeds are going to play in the formation they've played for the majority of the season, all of a sudden now Leeds could spring the trap and play with this lineup, and then, you know, depending on how the game's going, you either stick to this lineup and maybe just make one or two personnel changes. It looks like Anton Stack might become available after, you know, passing through the concussion protocol. So, you know, Anton would be a good option to bring on maybe in the second half. If either Ampadu or Gruev is starting to tire, or if either of those two pick up an injury, I wouldn't bring him on for Tanaka, because I just feel Tanaka's got a more advanced role. He's still going to be part of a three-man midfield. However, when Leeds are attacking, Tanaka has to have that licence to be able to support Calvert-Lewin and Mecha, and potentially Gudmundsson and Bogle as well if they're both pushing up. Because that would still then leave your three centre-backs and your two DCMs back to defend if Chelsea were to attempt to counter-attack. So I think this is the way to go for Leeds in this match. It's against another top-end level team. It's not worth taking the risk of going with the 4-3-3 and having a similar outcome as to what happened against Man City. I agree to an extent with Daniel Farke that the 5-3-2/3-5-2 might not work against every individual opponent, but against all of the ones that have been expensively assembled, I think there's a damn good chance that it works. There's no harm in having the tools available to, you know, if the match is going in a certain direction and it feels that a 4-3-3 becomes more beneficial, then, you know, minus Dan James, who's going to be out injured, you've got Noah Okafor, Willie Gnonto, Jack Harrison and Brendan Aronson that can play wide, and you can then adapt the players that are on the pitch. It might be a case of keeping Mecha on because he's probably a little bit quicker than Calvert-Lewin, and so you'd maybe just take off the two that came on. So effectively, you might, you know, if you had to go back to a 4-3-3, you might take off Calvert-Lewin and Biol, and then they, you know, that defence goes back to a traditional back four. Ampadu and Gruev, as I say, you might take out either or for Stack, possibly. Oh no, you couldn't do because you're bringing on different players. You're only going to have a. Oh no! It would be a three-man midfield. Yeah. So you could bring Stack on for either Ampadu or Gruev, and then. Oh, you see that? No, that ain't going to work. Ignore what I'm saying. But if we go back to a 4-3-3, then there's the potential for it. Oh yeah, no, it would work because I say if Biel's coming off, so there's your extra midfielder, and then and so you bring Stack on, and then and your wingers. Yeah. It does work. It's just my brain not working as fast as I would like it to. Yeah. So ultimately, you'd have Metro up front then with the two wingers either side. So potentially Okafor on the left and Gnonto on the right, as an example. That'd be quite nice. In terms of, you know, the kind of attacking output that you might get from that trio. With Tanaka, Ampadu and Gruev, or Stack. I mean, you could go with 3 DCMs and bring Stack on for Tanaka, and just go with 3 DCMs, and then and then your three up top. But then the problem is how do you get the service up to them if you're playing with three DCMs? Which is why I feel you need a midfielder that's going to have that license to be able to go forward just a little bit. You've got to have someone that can put those balls forward and support the front boys. But having a front two, for me, this is where we can support the front guys a lot better, because you've got a front two. One of them will potentially drop back into a 10 when out of possession, and then when we're in possession, push forward a little more, help with the press, and just cause the Chelsea back line some problems. Realistically, I don't see any reason why this lineup that I've got on screen right now shouldn't start that match. But I have a horrible feeling that Farke might revert back to the 4-3-3, because he wasn't, he was kind of dismissing it in his press conference. Which is a little disappointing, because, alright, I mean, to a small extent it might not just simply be the base formation. And changing a couple of players in that, it's like anything. You can have something, but it's what you do with it that counts. But again, there's no doubt that the formation and obviously the change in personnel, because you take your wingers off and put on an extra striker and an extra centre back. There's no doubt that made a massive world of a difference against Manchester City. So for me, this is the lineup. The only difference would be a straight man-for-man swap. So, Stack instead of either Ampadu or Gruev. As I said, Gruev's kind of been fifth choice central midfielder, hasn't he? So you might see Stack come in for Gruev, but hopefully Stack would be in a more natural position of a number 6 rather than a number 8 or number 10. Tanaka would be like an 8/10. I wouldn't want to see us go with 3 DCMs. I just think it's too defensive. When you're already talking about 5 defenders as well, one of them has to have license to go forward, and the most natural one out of our 5 central midfielders to go forward with any kind of artistic license is Tanaka. Tanaka's extremely tidy on the ball, doesn't lose possession very often, and he's the one that can feed those passes forward to the likes of DCL and Mecha. With Gudmundsson and Bogle supporting on either side. To me, this works. You've then got the likes of Ampadu or Gruev, maybe less so Gruev. He doesn't seem to have a killer pass, but Ampadu and Stack do have the ability to get a good long ball forward. So from the DCM position, maybe that can happen as well. It's a more direct style. Not dawdling in your own half. That's where we came unstuck against Man City in the first half. Dawdling in his own half, pissing around with ball when we need to get it forward. The attacking line of the opposition is too strong to mess around in your own half, especially anywhere near your own penalty box. You've got to be forward thinking, yes, without sacrificing the defence. But if you're in possession, you don't have to think of defence, because when you're in possession, you want to attack. And against Chelsea, who will want to attack themselves, you can't do that. We were able to keep Haaland quiet, because of the certain way that the players were playing. We have to do the same with the Chelsea attack now. And I think we can do it better doing it this way. 5 at the back, 3 in midfield and 2 up top. Leeds have the tools to be able to adjust things. This is what's really good. We've got wingers, we've got central midfielders, we've got fullbacks who can play wing back. We've got enough centre backs. Got a couple of strikers. We've got enough to be able to kind of play in this kind of formation with this kind of thought process, if you like. So this is what I'm hoping we see tomorrow night. Whether we see it is another matter entirely. We could quite easily see Calvert-Lewin and Beale go back to the bench. and he reverts. He might bring Stack in for Gruev and just go 4-3-3. And if he, the thing is, like, it ain't really a 4-3-3 in the sense of the word, is it? Because you're not playing with three strikers, so it's more like a 4-5-1, isn't it? Yeah, it's more like a 4-5-1, which to me is too defensive, or even a 4-3-2-1 if you like, but not in Christmas tree formation. But either way, two up top just seemed to work so much better, and it worked better against a team that was right up there. Imagine what two up top against the weaker teams could do. And this is why, like a couple of the other Leeds content creators, I think that this is why they say that this needs to be the formation going forward for the entirety of the season, regardless of who the opposition is. Because ultimately, with two up top, we're going to be more dangerous. Now, it could be argued that maybe you could you consider going to a 4-4-2 against weaker sides? So maybe on the return fixture against Wolves, for example, who look doomed. Maybe even the return fixture against Burnley, the fixtures against Sunderland maybe. I know Sunderland are flying high, but they are still a newly promoted team and can be beaten. It's not like the top of the league and unbeaten. You know what I mean? They can be beat. So yeah, not really a lot to say on this one, because ultimately the focus will be, when when the team lineup comes out and the players get onto the pitch, the first thing that's going to be looked at is A, which 11 is on the pitch, and B, what formation are they starting in. And if they don't start in a 5-3-2 or a 3-5-2, and they don't have two strikers, they don't have the three centre backs, then we know that something's gone wrong, and that Farke's probably reverted back to what he was trying before. If he really had to, he could put Ampadu at centre back, sacrifice either Strauch or Beal, put Ampadu at the back, and have a three-man midfield of Stack, Gruev and Tanaka. He might fancy that, for all we know, and that way then he's got a centre back on the bench. But I don't think Ampadu's best position is centre back. I just don't think he's big enough. I don't think he's big enough or strong enough. I think he's more. He's far better as a midfielder, defensive one. Albeit again, he's running that tightrope with the yellow cards, isn't he? So it's probably a good thing that we've got the likes of Strauch, who's the vice captain anyway. It's a good thing that we've got Stack coming back from injury. Longstaff we're going to have to wait, which is a shame. It'd be interesting to see what Longstaff would be like in a 5-3-2, wouldn't it? What kind of role he'd play. He'd possibly be a little bit more adept to being the one that would share that slightly more advanced position with Tanaka, perhaps. And then the likes of Stack, Ampadu and Gruev, the three of those fight it out for those two more DCM positions. With the centre backs as well, if we could get Bourne outfit, then all of a sudden we've got all four of our main centre backs back, and then you've got options at the back there. It's very unlikely that Rodon will get dropped, but if Strauch or Biol were not showing good form, you could bring Bornau in, and then obviously Biol and Strauch are both left-footed, so they'd take the left side of defence. Rodon could then go in the middle, and then Bornau on the right, who has covered it right back in his career before now as well. So that's another option. In terms of the squad depth, that's these are the kind of options we have. And then later on in the game, you've got the artistic license of a different type of striker in Perot. You've got wingers in Okafor and Nonto and Harrison and Aronson. When Longstaff's back, you've got the likes of Longstaff available as well. I just feel we need the full squad back. You know, it'd be important to get Dan James back as well, of course. And that raw pace, you can't teach pace. So yeah, there you have it, folks. As I say, the only thing with the Chelsea lineup will be that they'll have to replace Caicedo, but otherwise it'll be a strong lineup, whatever they put out. So yeah, do please hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. Do please hit the hype button if it's still there, and also do please like the video. All of these things are completely free to do, and it really helps the channel. I want to boost this YouTube channel as much as I possibly can. There's plenty of video game content coming out as well. Some live streams with that. There'll also be some attempts to get some top threes and speedrun world records as well. Recorded videos, so there's going to be plenty of content coming out on the channel. Do keep an eye out for it, do give it a watch, and do please do all of that good free stuff. If you really enjoy it, and if you feel that you can afford to do so, you know, there's ways to either donate to the PayPal, or if I can get the join button working on YouTube, if we can grow the channel enough, then that option will be there as well. So you know, these are the kind of ambitions that I've got for the channel. I really want to start building it up now, get as much content on there as feasibly possible. In the meantime, folks, let's hope for 3 points, or at the very least a draw. Would you take? I mean, that's an interesting thing. Would you take a draw at home against Chelsea, just to stop this rot of losses that we've had recently? I don't think we can afford a loss in any shape or form. Forget who the opposition is. You know, I think we're 4 losses on the bounce now. It ain't good enough. You know, we're only in the relegation zone on goal difference, but you know, there's no gap there now. You know, whereas a few matches ago we had a gap ahead of ourselves. We had a gap behind us for the teams that were lower than us. And now we don't. Apart from, you know, Wolves is the only one where there's any real gap. So it's a good thing that obviously Wolves are being so bad, because ultimately it might be just down to the 2 remaining positions up for grabs for going down, and I don't want Leeds to be in that. So yeah, has to be a positive result, not just a good performance. As I say, we could take a lot of positives from that second half performance against Man City. But we've got to take that performance and put it into a full 90 plus minutes against Chelsea. We can't concede any goals, you know, in the 90 something minute. You know, we've done that too often. We've dropped 4 points because of it. And if we had those 4 points on the board, we won't be in the drop zone right now. So we've got to cut that out, and we've got to show that attacking intent that got us the 2 goals against Man City. We've got to show the same against Chelsea. We've got the players that can do it. If Calvert-Lewin can be as lively as he was, you know, that'll be fantastic. If Metch can keep his goal scoring form going, that'll be fantastic. And then if the team can just keep a clean sheet, or keep it down to 1, keep it down to 1 goal as a maximum that goes against us, because the minus goals against at the moment is shocking. It's too much. Any team would get relegated with that kind of negative figure. You know, that can't happen. It just can't happen. So yeah, the team's going to have to start clawing back that goal difference. That could be crucial at the end of the season, goal difference. You know, with it being so close around that bottom end. You know, if we can be the best of the bunch down in the bottom there, and you know, it'll only be a relatively small goal difference, maybe -9 or less, or even better, a positive goal difference by the end of the season. I mean, how great would that be? And maybe this formation can help that. You know, we only conceded 1 goal in that second half, and it came right at the end, and that's just down to a lack of concentration and game management. If you can improve your game management and keep your concentration right until the final whistle, then that formation's got all the potential to keep clean sheets, but also provide enough in attack. So I'm going to leave it there, folks. Let's hope for a positive result. Let's see us get out of that relegation zone, and let's see us start pushing on now. Because if we get a result against Chelsea, I reckon Liverpool then start being a little more concerned. Liverpool will be aware of what we did in that second half against Man City. They're not going to be oblivious to it. And if we do another good performance against Chelsea, they're going to be aware that we're not going to be a pushover. And the thing with Liverpool, they either win or they lose. They don't draw. So let's see if we can put another loss in their loss column. But firstly, let's overcome Chelsea. And we'll go from there. In the meantime, enjoy the match tomorrow, folks. Have a good one. See you next time. Bye for now.